Okay, good evening and welcome to another installment of our militarized equipment or ad hoc. Today is September 14th, 2022. I first want to give some great thanks to Commissioner Jordan, who has been holding it down while I've been out sick for the last 2 weeks, and the other members of the ad hoc carrying on the work. I saw that K7 got passed or approved at the last commission meeting. That's great. We're working through today some of the policies that we're going to see in on Friday's commission meeting, working through 3G crowd control and the Riot helmet impact report, as well as robots and unmanned aerial systems, the final drafts, as well as the impact reports for those. I think that'll probably take up most of the evening. Any questions or any comments to start us off? Okay. Lieutenant Thomason, will you take us down through 3G? I wasn't here last time. I know you started on some of it, so wherever you all left off would be great.
And you guys can see my screen with the policy.
Yes.
So we actually, so for people that are just logging on for the first time or viewing this for the first time, 3G is our OPD crowd control and crowd management policy. I've already gone through a quick once over with the group. Well, I can't remember now if it's a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And then we did bring it up on last meeting where I did make some changes. I'm just going to go straight to the changes unless people do want to interrupt me, or not interrupt me, but do have questions about other sections in the policy. So with that said, does anybody want to bring up anything or just go straight to it?
Let's get right into it.
Okay. So I'm going down to, and I know Jennifer's not here tonight, and I hopefully that she feels better. I did get an email from her, and so I am incorporating some of her comments into this policy. She did want to talk about, and why we're really doing this is the crowd control helmets, and we're going to talk about the impact report later on. But crowd control helmets through the Oakland Municipal Code were deemed to be military equipment. So we definitely had to put something in our policy that talks about helmets. And here I did, even though it says the same thing as it did before, I did put out like what the purpose is and the authorization, training, and prohibited use, so that it's actually spelled out, easy to read, and so people can go right to it and see what the changes are. So do we have any questions about the crowd control helmets? It pretty much says the same thing as it did last time, except for that it's broken down into the different sections. Okay. Moving on to the next change. I think there was 3 changes total into this document. And here's the next one. So the comment came up about using the LRAD, and I know that I don't know if are we hearing LRAD tonight? I can't remember.
I believe so. I could be wrong, but I thought I would.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We're going to try to get to it. We want to make sure we finish off, since it's not going to show up on Friday's policy.
So when we do use LRAD, even though there is a separate policy on LRAD, we did want to put a comment in on this about using the warning tone. And just so people know, we've never used the warning tone since we've owned the LRAD. But we did do a note in here for people, for our crowd control, that the LRAD's warning tone should not be used for prolonged periods of time, more than 5 seconds.
Will you, I know we get into this in the LRAD policy. Could you reference that policy so that, or state that, somewhere in this section, it may not be in this particular note, that for specific direction on LRAD use to refer to I'm sorry, I can't, the numbers are too close together for me to remember.
Is it a train bolt in DQ or is it a
I-27, right? Let me see. Let me double check.
DGO?
Yeah, I-27. Oh, right.
Appreciate it.
I will add the title later on. So, all right, we got that. So people will be able to reference the LRAD policy into that. And then going on to the next and final change to this document. We did, so in our inventory here at the Oakland Police Department, we do have riot shields. We've never used them. I think there's about 20 shields down in our storage unit. We don't plan on using them. We never trained with them. So we did put this into the prohibited section of our policy, riot shields, since it was deemed military equipment according to the city council. So we did put this in here, so it's pretty clear that we can't use them.
Why
And
do you
so-
have them if you're not using them? Did you talk about this last time?
No, I didn't, and I don't know the answer. I know that they were purchased a number of years ago. I don't know why we purchased them. Maybe it was because of certain protests that were coming up, and we were planning on training with them and having a policy with them, but they just never, it never happened.
Got it.
So, and that will bring me to the end of the policy. I know this policy is pretty set in stone with the lawyers that have already gone through it and the other couple lawsuits. I think one was just settled, one is still going on. We do have language in there that will satisfy both of them. And I think that's about it. Do I have any questions about 3G?
Couple of things. Sorry, let me start by asking the other members of the ad hoc instead of just jumping right into it. Anybody have any other any notes?
I have a general question, not specific to this policy, so I can hold off until you make your comments if it's specific to this policy, Commissioner Shea.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that was brought up in our meeting, our commission meeting earlier last week actually, Thursday, was having some red line versions available, like just so that we are prepared in advance. Do we have any of our other policies that have the changes listed? Because I noticed in the packet that they're the finalized policies that we're presenting, but the commissioner did ask for like some red
lines. I'll bring that up with Lieutenant Turner. I know he's out today, but I'm sure there are red lines or the track changes that were made.
Right.
I do remember that on the meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that up for his presentation on Friday, I believe it is.
Yeah, maybe if we could have those in our back pocket when and if the question arises.
Okay. I will send Lieutenant Turner an email right after this.
Thank you. Other than that, I think this policy is good to go.
A couple of questions. I see up here at the top, it says automatic revision cycle every 3 years. Is this revision happening every 3 years?
I think it's just to put it should happen. I don't know if it has happened. I don't know when the last time this was, because there's been so many changes and lawsuits and injunctions that have taken place with this policy in particular. I think every time we get ready to revise it or look at it, that there's another lawsuit. So then we hold off and wait for it to end before and then something else pops up. So we do like to look at our policies every 3 years to make sure to see if they're within the law, because policing changes every so often. And hopefully that this will happen with the new SOS commander.
And then I when I looked at this policy, I was seeing, especially with I think it's AB 48, but Penal Code 13652. The way 13652 is written, it gives a number of conditions or things that need to happen before either kinetic energy weapons or chemical munitions can be used, but it doesn't break it out separately. So the conditions are the same for both. And I see here in the policy that you have, I think it's in section 4, discussion about chemical munitions and the deployment of chemical munitions, which does track 13652. Let me see when you get to it. Maybe it's section 5.
Chemical weapons right here,
Right.
number 4.
And so it goes into, you have the running list, A, B, C, D, E, and then it gets into, it's not broken out, but all the sections are there from 13652. But I was comparing this section to the section involving kinetic energy weapons, specifically less lethal, direct fired, less lethals. And I saw that some of the requirements were different. Was there a reason? So specifically, if you go to sub E here on the next page, audible announcements must be made announcing the intent to use, that's in there. But the 13652 goes on to say that requiring announcements made from various locations if necessary and delivered in multiple language if appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say what it is generally and not go through each line by line, but it seems that this section may have been written and played out in a different way than the chemical munition section. And I think that the department should double check to make sure that all of the requirements of 13652 are in the direct fired sim section, because I think that there are some that are missing.
Sim section. Okay. I will do that. I just know that there was a lot of, there's language in here that the lawyers said that had to stay in. So, but
Yeah.
I will definitely double check to make sure that both 13652 is in there. And if there are any changes for Friday, I'll make sure that the track changes are there.
Sure. And I don't think it's involving taking anything out. I think you may need to add more to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions or concerns with this policy? Okay.
Sorry, one more thing. Is there a section at the end, because since you have the screen up and I don't have mine open, about concerns or complaints about equipment, since this policy is the only place where helmets are mentioned? You know, that finisher section that we have in each one?
I don't think there is, since I thought K7 covers it all, and since the helmets are in there.
Helmets are, K7 does cover it, and generally each policy has been making a reference back to K7 to have, so that there is a sort of a link that says, if you have some sort of complaint or question about use of militarized equipment, please contact the K7 coordinator or the ME coordinator.
Okay, and I'll add that to right underneath the helmet section.
Yeah, that would be,
Okay.
that'd probably be the right place for it. Thank
I
you.
got it. I got it. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let me see if I can bring up the impact report for helmets. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the first time we're seeing this. This is our impact report for Riot helmets. Since each military equipment has to have an impact report to it, I did write this one for Riot helmets. It goes over what our description is. We use our helmet is the non-ballistic 906 series TAC Elite, and it's goes into here what it's made out of and what its specific product descriptors are. Just to let you guys know, this is the same helmet that I was issued 25 years ago in the academy. I still have my helmet. I'm sure DQ still has his. I think the only thing that's changed was the face shield. Get a new face shield because the other ones get scratched up pretty good.
Did you at least get a new one?
A new face shield, yes.
No, I mean like each time you're issued a helmet, is it a new one or is it a
No, I still have the same helmet that I started with. It's a new face shield that just pops off and then we can put on a new face shield. So when officers start the academy, they get a new helmet, and then they usually keep that helmet all the way through until they either leave the department or retire out. I don't know if there's been any damaged helmets. I can't remember there ever being too many damage. I'm sure there has been, but usually when an officer gets issued a helmet, they keep it for their career. So I did put a life expectancy on here. There wasn't really anything that was listed in there, but I'm guessing it's around 30 years. I've had mine for 25 years. I know people that I spoke to a sergeant that had his for 36 years. And when he retired, he still had the same helmet. So right now we have around 703 helmets that are in our either issued to police officers or in storage. So the fiscal impact, when we go to helmets, are around $400 each. Total estimated cost is about $281,000 for our inventory for helmets. And as we go down, so this impact report's a lot shorter than the other ones that we've seen, just because there hasn't been any lawsuits. I couldn't find any impacts. I did do Google search and try to look at other police departments, seeing if there's any impact or any negative impact that's happened with or deaths surrounding Riot helmets, and I could not find any.
For the helmet cost, does that include the face shield or is that like a separate cost?
That includes the face shield, yes.
Okay.
Right now, talking about misuses, even though misuses are unlikely, the only misuse I could think, right, especially right in this policy, where if people are wearing them outside, well, we want the officers to wear them. Obviously, we want our officers to wear them in large crowd situations where they're a little bit more possibility of violence taking place. We've had issues or situations in Oakland where you've had tens of thousands of people that are protesting in the streets, and it's very peaceful and it's no need to put on a helmet. And then we've had a lot smaller ones where only a couple hundred people, or at least 20 or 30 people, where it would call for putting on our helmets. So I did reach out to our city attorney's office. They do not remember any lawsuits involving Riot helmets in our city. So right now for misuse, and especially looking at any misuse or people wearing them outside, what we want them to wear them, our sergeants are required to do monthly audits of body worn camera video, and also going to the scenes of especially situations where there's more likely that there's violence taking place or issues on the street. Sergeants could see if people are wearing them outside what they're intended to wear. So only sworn people can wear the helmets that's attending the police academy. We do have a crowd control class in our police academy. And then also we do go over crowd control in our, it's called CPT. It's our continuing professional training where officers have to receive training every 18 months. And they receive crowd control training during those times. We do talk about the complaint process in here. If there's any internal affairs complaints, obviously all the stuff's reviewed if people are wearing their helmets outside the purpose or use that we want them to wear. I want to talk about alternative methods. We have had situations where not all situations call for a helmet. We have had protests that especially happen at Fred Gala Plaza where people are going to march. We will direct our officers or have our officers, if we feel that their objects are not going to be thrown, we do have a rapport. We built a rapport with the organizers. We will have our officers just hold their helmets down by their side as they're walking with the group or while they're trying to just keep the peace during the protest. So we do use de-escalation. We try to have the officers not just go directly to wearing the helmets. We do have them hold them first. And then if there's an articulable reason to put the helmet on, then we will direct them to put them on. Location, the Riot helmets will be used in the city of Oakland. And then there's no third party for this. And then I did add, I think this was from Jennifer, and I want to talk about some of these track changes that, here, let me go to the beginning. Here, let me finish it and then I'll go to the track changes. We just want for the track record, our helmets are standard issue. Every police officer that graduates from the police academy will be issued a Riot helmet. And that helmet's with them at all times and they can use it at the direction of the supervisor or commander on scene. And it's there just to really protect the officers from blunt force trauma or objects that are getting thrown at them. So I'm going to go to, I know Ms. Tu emailed me some changes she would like to see in the impact report, and I did add some stuff. So the first change was impact of unintended persons. There have been no lawsuits or litigation regarding OPD's crowd control helmets. She wanted that just spelled out in the document. Also, only sworn members who have completed the crowd control training and graduate from the post academy can wear the crowd control helmet. Crowd control helmets are not issued to our civilian staff or our police service technicians. In past protests, organizers have said when officers are wearing helmets, it has led to a tense situation. Situations OPD does not want to be the excuse for when situations become out of control. So that's why we use de-escalation, and sometimes we will have our officers hold their helmets by their sides. And then we did have put several controls in place to ensure that helmets are not used outside the policy. And that's with what I brought up with the supervisor doing monthly audits, supervisors going to the scenes of situations where, especially like any violent situation that comes into Oakland. It's not our policy, but if there's a protest or a situation, there's going to be a large crowd in Oakland, there's going to be a supervisor on the scene for those.
So I had a question more generally about the deployment of crowd control helmets. just thinking about when they are authorized. Like authorization is authorization bringing them with you, or is authorization putting them on?
Authorization is putting them on.
Okay. Okay. And then so is it a specific command that needs to be given by a commander or supervisor, like helmets on? That's the authorization?
Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Okay.
It's not, there's no set terminology. It's just, hey, everyone put on their helmets, or everyone hold their helmets by their sides. It's plain English.
Because there's a line in the policy that said members do not have to wait for objects to be thrown before authorizing or donning helmets.
Yeah.
And so does that mean that even if not authorized by a superior, an officer can put their helmet on to protect themselves if they feel, if they can articulate the exigent circumstances?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We want our officers to be out there. We're to be able to protect themselves before. It's not like wait for something to get thrown at you before you put the helmet on.
Oh.
Everyone's has stories here at the Oakland Police Department where they haven't had their helmets on and stuff is already flying in, they get hit with it.
Okay, so when that would explain why when sometimes a commander might say, take them off, because people have thought that they may need them, but then turns out they didn't. Okay.
Right.
Any questions or thoughts from the other members of the ad hoc on this impact report?
No, none for me.
None from me as well.
I saw one section, the part that talks about CPT might be
Yes.
page 2. If you could just spell that out.
Okay. We'll do that. All right. Any other questions? All right, I appreciate everybody's comments on this. I will get to working on this tonight and try to get you guys at least email the group the changes, and then get the changes to Joe, Lieutenant Turner, so he can post them. So
Yeah, much appreciated. Good work.
and I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think DQ's next.
All right, let me jump on.
Sorry.
Elrad,
What?
I was able to get a hold of the actual representative. He called me about 2 hours ago.
Sure. If we devote 30 minutes to each one of your policies, we can get through by 8. Let's do it.
Let's do this. All right, you can see the screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so a couple, let's see, just moving down. Let's see, this was a couple things. The 2 to 5 second tone. I think this is the language that I've found from everybody else. There's nothing else as far as anything else as far as going down. I think the biggest thing that Jennifer was kind of asking was continuous versus non-continuous, and then if what would differentiate, or how long should you wait in between delivering another warning tone or an alert tone. There's nothing in policies. I was able to speak to the LRAD representative. He's been in Florida and actually traveling to different departments giving training. So there's nothing in their suggested realm that would suggest 1 second, 2 seconds. I think it's kind of up to us. And there's nothing in other policies that would suggest otherwise or elaborate how long you wait between delivering another tone if we wanted another tone. So I think we're kind of stuck on that as far as if we put a definition clear for 1 second or wait 2 seconds before delivering another tone or giving another warning, like a verbal warning. So that's something we can discuss here, but there's, as far as anything in policies, I haven't found anything. And also talking to the LRAD representative, there's nothing. We can go back and revisit that. But the one big thing that I found was I think we don't have to change to 50 feet. So, but we can. So one of the big things I found was you can see the note section I have here where it says recommendation. So we have the 100X and we have the 450X. So talking to LRAD, it's funny because if you look at outside agencies, they say 50 feet, but the recommendation per LRAD, they said, is with the 100X, with the maximum output, with the tone being 137 decibels, they're actually saying that the recommendation would be that we're 40 meters away from a person and the 450X is 75 meters, as opposed to, it's not saying that 50 feet is not safe, because a lot of cities are still doing that, but they are saying the recommendation would be 40 meters and 75 meters. The decibel rating that I did find is true, where it goes down in decibel rating by 6 decibel ratings when you go down, and approximately 32 decibel ratings down from the maximum when you go down to the green section. The biggest thing they had was that they can't really give you an accurate decibel rating for each section, color section, unless you have a meter by you. They do have the highest rating at 137 decibels and 146 for the 450. But one of the biggest things he described was that you have rain, wind, weather, vehicles, natural environmental changes, all that changes it. But if you want an actual rating, I think Jennifer was asking, like, what would be the green rating? Will it be 0 through, a certain decibel rating? They can't really give me that, but it'd be an approximately 32 decibels down from the maximum, if that makes sense. And then as far as best practices within LRAD when children are present, they said you'd be doing the same precautionary that you would with any person, and whether it's a teenager, a young adult, or an adult. So those were the biggest things I got out of talking to them today. I didn't ask the cost, that was one thing. But looking at this, I am going to change up a couple things with my impact report for the 450X and for the 100X. And I think that's one thing we can discuss today is if we leave it at 50 feet or the recommendation is saying 40 meters and 75 meters.
Yeah, that's, I was actually just doing the conversions and it looks like 40 meters is 131 feet. Yeah. And 75 meters is 246 feet, which is a big difference from 50 feet, but that's at the maximum distance, or that's at the maximum.
That's at the maximum output. Yeah. And then see, I was even going just by 120 feet, just kind of going with a yard. But it is a big difference. And I said, because some of the policies he had also referenced to me only 50 feet. And he said, no, it's okay. We're not saying it's still safe. But LRAD just suggests and recommends the 40 meters and the 75 meters. That was kind of the biggest outtake I took from that conversation I had with them.
Right.
Which is very interesting.
So my thought about this is that I think the department, I think the department needs to take these recommendations into consideration as they draft their authorized use policy. When I look at your authorized uses from the previous page, I see that there are provisions which would allow for someone to start off with using, if you go down a little bit, it's page 4, yeah. You're starting to build out here that if you're going to use a continuous warning tone, it should start in the green zone and each use should be evaluated before moving into the next volume level. It strikes me that it would make a lot of sense to have unfortunately, it strikes me that it makes a lot of sense to have clear delineations of when you use it in the green zone, when you use it in the yellow zone, and when you use it in the red zone. And also have relevant distance adjustments for those uses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if there's ever a situation where the department is thinking that they should be using the LRAD in the red zone, they definitely have to abide by the manufacturer's recommendations on a safe distance to use that. And if the red zone is the maximum, or it's not even saying what the decibel level is, it's just maximum output, which I assume is the red zone, which means to me that if you're ever using the LRAD in the red zone, you have to be at a distance of the 40 meters or 75 meters, depending on the device. To do so otherwise would be to completely against the manufacturer's recommendations and present probably a significant danger. And that's if you want to use it in the red zone.
Yeah.
So, has the department ever used it beyond the green zone?
I've never used the LRAD myself.
Okay.
So I can't answer that question. I'm gonna assume yes. I mean, I can give an example as far as, we're stationed at 14th and Broadway and a crowd starts walking towards 15th, 16th, 17th and Broadway and the hostage negotiating team, maintains their location at 14th and Broadway, then you just, change the volume tone because I'm not moving, the crowd's moving.
Right.
So I see that, but then I also see the fact of most likely the hostage negotiator saying, well, if you're saying it's the certain distance of the 40 meters, then I'll just stay at 120 always, regardless if I'm in the green, yellow, red, just so I'm always safe. So that's something I can talk to them, but it was just kind of interesting because I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and we can build it around their use, but I think the department should propose when they are or how they want to use this. If the department decides, okay, we're always going to use it at the maximum recommended distance, then that makes it straightforward and easy for the LRAD operators. If they want some gradation, if they want to say keep it at 50 feet, but just say we're never going to use it into in the red zone because we can't, because we want to keep it within 50 feet, then that's what the department decides, right?
Yeah.
It just, now there are clear limits, at least in the red zone. So it makes sense. And anyways, those are my thoughts about it. And that's kind of the outer limits of it. Do other members of the ad hoc have thoughts?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, Erickson, please go ahead. I can wait.
Oh, I was just gonna say I do agree with you too, Jesse. I believe that there should be a procedure, you could say, like when it comes to moving on from the green zone, yellow to the red, especially given that is for crowd control. So I just want to affirm that, and yeah, I agree that there should be some more details to this. Go ahead, David, Jordan.
Thanks. So it occurs to me that under other circumstances and maybe with a less tight timeline, this is exactly the kind of thing that would be helpful for the people on the ad hoc to actually experience. I get that there are sort of built-in, there are some manufactured guidelines, but some of this is sort of experiential. The reason we are having this conversation about the LRAD and its potential dangers is because it has potentially been misused previously, or people feel like it poses a danger. But you know, without firsthand knowledge, I think it is challenging for us to sort of get a sense of what that really is. And yes, it makes sense that there should be some best practices around distance and volume. I guess I would have assumed that would be something that was baked into the cake from the manufacturer, but again, maybe it had not occurred to them that this instance where you're going to have to be writing policy at this specific a level. I guess I would like to see, if not, I mean, I'm sure there's some way we can do some research around. I mean, you've already got the manufacturer telling you, okay, if you're using it at maximum volume, then the range needs to be this. The distance to any other sort of target needs to be this. But also having an understanding of like what potential damage, hearing damage can be caused at different levels and at what ranges could give us a sense of, and I'm sure that exists out there, even if it is just sort of a sort of thumbnail gauge, so we can draw some sort of broad guidelines around adding this, adding a guide. It doesn't, I feel like it doesn't necessarily need to be precise, but it does feel like it needs to be in there because clearly it's a concern. That's all.
This is one that we don't have as tight of timeline on because it's not under the local ordinance. This one could be completed, or we could wait until official passage on our October 13th, and it's not one of the ones that are presented or that's on the schedule for Friday.
So
do we want to try setting up a demonstration maybe next week Friday?
That's what I was going to ask. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I can totally ask for AT&T to set up a demonstration, and then maybe next Friday, you're saying?
I am unfortunately saying next Friday. I won't. I think. How's that sound to people?
I'm looking at my calendar now. It looks like I probably have next Friday available.
It is apparently it is a state holiday, but it has not yet made its way to the counties and the cities. I think that's next year.
Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out if my children are going to be out of school, in which case we may have some actual children to test this on. I would never do that to my kids.
That is commitment, sir.
I love it.
I would never. They would probably love the experience, but tentatively, I'm good for the 23rd.
Should we aim for the afternoon?
How about I'm going to put out an email, or I'm going to text a couple of the HNT guys and gals and see what they can do for me, and then I'll get back. I'll do that.
Commissioner Jackson Castaigne, Erickson.
I can do before 4 p.m.
Okay.
23rd.
I can do the 23rd, but maybe after 3.
Yeah. So right now we're looking in the 3 to 4 o'clock slot.
Before, yeah.
We'll see what we come up with and figure it out.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Appreciate your
Oh.
flexibility.
that's good. That's actually good. I like that. Do you even want to go? Any other questions? I think after the demonstration, maybe everyone will have kind of a clearer understanding of the LRAD.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think that it's a department's device, right? And so the department should make a proposal as to how or what it plans on using the device, and I think that might take a little bit of information from the LRAD operators as to, how often do they use it, at what decibel range, and is it really feasible to use it at the range of 130 130 feet or more, etc. There's a question in the Q&A. Is there a set frequency for the device? Do you know?
When we say frequency, what do we mean frequency? There's a switch turns it on and off, and
In hertz. HZ is the abbreviation, I think.
Yeah. So presumably this is covering a sort of spectrum of frequencies, but some frequencies are more damaging to hearing than others. So I think that maybe is part of the question.
yeah, that one I wouldn't know.
As a
I
person,
think the biggest thing you'll see is in general how the a speaker might go out more like a shotgun, per se. This is more like a rifle. It's more directed. It's more linear as opposed to sending out. That's why it sounds like it's louder. So as far as frequency, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
so
Well,
I
go
just
ahead.
looks like 2,000 to 4,000 hertz. And so it says here, specifically designed to be weighted to transmit sound loaded in frequency range where human hearing is most sensitive, 2,000 to 4,000 hertz. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Yep. All right. How about you take us through some of the other parts of this policy that may have changed since? So we take a look. Besides the, it was really good work getting that information from the LRAD people. I think it really gives us a clear sense of direction.
That was it. I think the biggest thing too is we took out utilizing it to establish communication with anybody suffering from a mental illness or crisis intervention. The authorization stayed the same. The warning tone, I think the biggest thing was the 2 to 5 seconds and understanding the difference of continuous versus non-continuous. But that's something that we can establish here. I've kind of left it at 2 to 5 seconds, but I think Jennifer wanted more of an explanation of, are we waiting a second in between each one? And I think that's truly about it. The only other thing that was the actual decibel rating and the distance and whether or not it'd be any different for a child to a teenager to an adult, but talking to the LRIGHT representative, there'd be no difference. Their recommendation is just treat it the same way you would treat in general to any person.
Okay.
That was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah. Was there an impact report?
There was, but looking at it, yeah, let me get out of here. Let me see. Let's see.
And I was able to send the impact reports for the robots and the unmanned aerial, but I think I lost the LRAD one in the shuffle. Yes.
All right, so one of the biggest things I'm going to change, obviously, I noticed this was 450 to 100x. I kind of linked it together. I have to separate it. And then considering the fact that there's this different decibel ratings, obviously we have one of each, so I'm going to separate that. I'll have that done by tomorrow. And then I don't have the initial cost. I was pretty much waiting for a response back from LRAD. So I'm going to email him and ask what the initial or the cost we purchased for. It was one of each.
Does the department not have the record of when they purchased it?
I don't know. I've asked the hostage negotiating team members. They don't know how much it costs. If you go to fiscal, unfortunately, I think we've had multiple either resignations and people leaving that we've had now. Maybe this is the 5th or 7th person now in fiscal within the last 2 years or a year. So unfortunately, it's just a lot of movement. So I don't have the cost of it, unfortunately. I don't know, Jeff, when you were in SOD, do you remember having any receipts or anything?
Sorry about that. No, I don't, because it was purchased prior to me being transferred over there.
Got it. The estimated anticipating cost, I think this is something that we had talked about. It's at this time there are no estimated or anticipated costs. I mean, the only thing we have is when we're on training, and if someone comes out and gets called in on overtime, if we're going to be utilizing it for a some type of event or a barricaded suspect during a hostage negotiating team incident or a SWAT call out, then we'll be tracking that utilizing an I-code. And it really depends on, I don't have a life expectancy of this. I think it's just wear and tear, and depending how we treat the piece of equipment. As far as estimated anticipated ongoing costs, we do have only 1 day of training a month for HNT officers. Some come in on overtime and some come on their regular shift. No storage costs.
Is the HNT training specific to LRAD, or is there an LRAD specific training?
No, so the HNT training is, I guess you could say, specific to the LRAD. When people come on board, they go through their, to become an HNT officer, obviously, or negotiator, you have to go through a application process, oral board, and then you go and get either assigned to the unit, but it's an ancillary position, and then you have to go through a 40-hour course before you can actually be a team member. And that's either through the FBI or through another agency, I think, when I listed it below. Let's see, sorry. It's the 40-hour hostage negotiating school by the FBI, or the 40-hour basic crisis negotiation hosted by DPREP. So you go through one of those trainings, become certified, and then you attend monthly training through HNT. And then it's through HNT that the members who will give you on-the-job training for utilizing or using and getting to know the LRAD.
Got it.
one of the biggest things, obviously, the reasonably anticipated impacts was hearing impairment I put in there. I am going to change a little bit of this because I have the model 100X and giving what their decibel rating is. I don't have any history of any complaints at OPD or anybody complaining or any that I know of any lawsuits or anything about people having any hearing damage to the LRAD. Unless anybody here knows of another or knows otherwise, I don't have anything related to OPD having any litigations or anything going on right now towards the LRAD. I know other agencies have, such as Santa Rosa and some other agencies which have disabled their warning or alert tone because of that, but I think it's also because they didn't have a policy and they weren't utilizing it. I can say that for crowd control incidents, we've never utilized it. I know for sideshow incidents, we have, but one of the biggest reasons for that is because cars are revving their engines and driving around in circles, and people are in their cars, so it's giving the alert tone to get people's attention, and then giving notifications where we want people to exit, what we want people to do, how we want people to stop driving around in circles and spinning donuts. So, so we have used it for sideshow, but we have never used it that I know of for any type of crowd control issues such as riots or protests. So I'm going to change to hearing impairment just to add the 450X. Go ahead.
Sure. Yes, add the 450X. And also it sounds like it might be useful to know what the lawsuits in other counties may have been about. And what, if any, they or how they may have affected someone's hearing or other health. In figuring out what the health impacts may be. And it also should go here, but also
above, got it.
Right in the health impacts portion, right?
Okay. Let's see, going down mitigations. I know on the mitigations portion, on the other, they're discussing use of force and everything. Obviously, we're not using this as a use of force. We're not using this as a aerial denial device. So I took out the use of force portion from here. For the safeguarding measures, I talked about the distance and everything. And the volume controls. So the volume control has to be done by hand. And it's a switch on the LRAD, or it's also a switch on the microphone itself. I can discuss it a little bit better, but I kind of put the, now that I know the technical safeguards on the volume controls, I can add on here the actual decibel rating and how loud they are.
That makes sense, but it also, this is a part that talks about how the design of the speaker keeps its use safe. So going through like what exactly the ranges are may not be as helpful as sort of what has been here or what was listed here, which is that there is a red, a yellow, and red is supposed to mean danger and yellow is supposed to mean caution.
Leave it like that too.
Yeah. Is there, I think that there's also your procedural safeguards, or maybe not the technical safeguards, but the procedural safeguards will require additional authorization to use beyond certain, may require additional authorization to use in the yellow zone or in the red zone. That's if that's what's going to end up being used. And that will be procedural safeguards to ensure that it's not used in a damaging way.
Okay. Let's go back up here. Let's see, scrolling down. I think that's about it, unless there's anything else. I talked about outside agencies. San Francisco is just completely taking it out of their service. I talked about Santa Rosa, how they disabled their alert tone. The sheriff's department has similar authorized usages. I didn't go in depth to talk about all the multiple agencies that I looked at. I can talk about more if we want to. I didn't think there was a need to.
That sounds like a question. I think
I think we're fine. I don't think there's a need to talk about multiple agencies. I think just given the research that I had, I think we're fine.
yeah, I think representative agencies, ones that have, and you have done so through here. You've talked about how there's one agency that has similar uses. Some have sort of changed the way that they have authorized its use, and some have completely taken it out. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? So I think the biggest takeaways, obviously, I'm going to separate these two and make a separate section. Discuss the 450X and then discuss the lawsuits and how it's impacted. And most likely that's going to be through Santa Rosa, I think. I think they have 2 lawsuits going on, or they had 2 lawsuits going on. And then the authorized, it's only going to be in the red zone, the authorized portion we're going up. I'll double check on that, and I think that's about it.
I think that makes sense.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any suggestions or no?
I'm good.
Thank you for your help on this. And again, I think I wish the LRAD representative would call me a long time ago, but he kind of enlightened me. We had a good hour conversation on talking about this. And if anybody's interested, I'm going to watch. He just came from Austin, where there was a presentation to their police commission on the LRAD yesterday. And it might be, I'm guessing, on YouTube. So I'm going to try to find it tonight or tomorrow. If I find it, I'll email it to everybody. And they said it's about an hour-long presentation on the LRAD to the police commission in Austin.
I think that would be helpful. Also, I just wanted thank you for your diligence in sort of following up with the LRAD people and getting that done.
No problem.
Yeah.
I've actually learned a lot from this one too. So this is let's see. Oops, I think I stopped my screen sharing. That's fine. Would you like is it the robot one now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, cool. Let's go. Oops. Oh, I just opened up my email. I don't want my email. All right, so this is the robot. What'd be good is if I get the if I do the LRAD demonstration on that Thursday, which one guy's already texted me saying
Friday.
16th, he's saying that, am I on mute? Sorry, no.
No, Friday. Friday, the 23rd. You said
23rd.
Thursday.
I'm sorry, Friday the 23rd. It'd be nice to actually maybe see if I can get some of the robot guys to come out and show you the robots too. It won't even take too long. The range of communication, I couldn't really find anything of this. I think one of the questions was, how far, have we done it from 500 yards away? No. Have we done it from a block away? Yeah. Have we lost communication when you go indoors? Depending. We have lost communication if it's concrete walls, but sometimes we haven't. Have we had frequency problems when we've done a drone and a robot? No, we haven't, which is very good. But as far as the range of communication, I don't really have a true answer for that on the robot. So
Is there will the department have, thank you for looking into it. Is the department going to have some guideline as to how far an operator can be from a robot or should be?
I think it depends, and I'll give you a couple examples. One of the things we like doing is you have your designated arrest team, your DAT team, or your contact team, however you want to call them, maybe positioned near the front door. And then you'll have somebody on the back door on the back side. What we like doing is embedding a ESU operator with that team. So depending on the terrain, depending on what that person is armed with, depending on does the person have an elevated tactical advantage position over us, it all depends on how close we can be. So we could be really close to the door. We can also be a block away. So I don't think there's truly a guideline. Obviously it gets to the point where you could lose communication with the robot as it's driving down the street, but I have never seen it where we've driven down 2 blocks down the street. I've seen it where we do drive 2 blocks down the street, so we don't carry the robot because it is pretty heavy. Sometimes it's a 60-pound robot. I'm not going to carry a 60-pound robot a whole block. I'd rather just drive it as I'm walking next to it. But where I'm 2 blocks away, I've never been on a call out where I'm 2 blocks away and the robot's 2 blocks away from me. I have been on call outs where there's a person holding a gun to their chest and we're in the front of the house and we're able to drive the robot down the side of a house to the backyard to gain a view and leave the robot there in position and maintain as we're able to kind of convince the person to put the gun down after several hours. So I don't have a set yard, meter, feet range. So I guess the simple answer would be no.
Okay. If we don't have it, we don't have it. I
A
think
lot of examples, but I think it all kind of differentiates on what type of situation you're given. I think the biggest thing out of this whole thing is the detachable tools, I have to say. I think everything else we're fine. As far as, before we go to the detachable tools, let me go to I don't know if I have it on here, but I'm also going to add this on the LRAD, if everybody's fine with this, is, hey, when you're, and this should fall under DGO I-15, our body worn camera, and I know it's going to be altering and changing, but when you're deploying your LRAD and you're utilizing it, you should have your body worn camera activated. I think everybody can agree to that here. And I think when you are deploying a robot, you should have your body worn camera activated, where hopefully it's capturing the screen. Because we don't record, it doesn't record. We don't have the capability to record. It doesn't have SD cards to record like our UAV, UAS drones. That could be a consideration here where I put it in here, just making sure your body worn camera is activated by all operators when you're deploying these. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the drone one because the drone one's actively recording. So the biggest thing is the detachable tools here. I know Jennifer had made a comment on here, obviously the detachable OC canister, which can deploy a less lethal chemical agent. Utilization of the OC can be utilized in accordance with K3, K4. I think one of the questions she asked is, well, when would you attach it and utilize it? I'm still thinking about that because we've never utilized it. We've never attached it. I don't know if it's beneficial or if it hurts us if we deploy the drone, realize, oh, I should have attached it. Let me get it back and bring it back towards me. And now attach it. Now let me send it back. So that's still something I'm considering. I'm thinking the robotic claw with telescoping camera on the arm is always attached, and that's always attached because that's what helps us open interior doors, exterior doors, helps us deliver items. And we delivered water, pizza, cigarettes, everything, but it also lets us go up to a front door, maintain distance, open a front gate, not break the gate, but open up the door. Takes a little bit of getting used to, and then holding the door open and letting the camera or letting the robot drive in. So as far as the OC canister and when it can and can't, when we should and when we shouldn't detach it, I haven't figured that out yet. I can't say that because we've never utilized it. I think an easier one would be the detachable glass or tire puncture. When that can be attached and not detached is if we have a person barricaded in a vehicle. I think that's pretty simple, and that's something I can add on here or not. But I think that's a little simpler where, hey, if we have somebody barricaded in a vehicle, so we're trying to avoid the person fleeing, okay, the watch commander, incident commander, tactical commander can authorize it. That's pretty simple on that one. And then if you look at the pan disruptor, we've never utilized this again either. This one is with a 12 gauge blank shotgun round. And we can use it to break open a lock on a door or disrupt a suspicious package. I don't know when we'd ever really do it for suspicious package. That's what it's utilized for. We'd most likely call the bomb unit for. So we've never utilized this either. This does take a little bit more work. So I think this one would be if it's authorized by an incident commander, they're requesting it, then that's when we do it, because it's kind of a one and done, if that makes sense. So again, I think this is the biggest question for the detachable tools that maybe everybody has, unless there's some other parts of the policy that people have questions on.
Are there, well, I suppose first, does anybody on the ad hoc have any other comments or suggestions or questions about other parts of this policy?
Can I also ask real quick, everyone's texting me saying that they have a training day. They're all out on training for that day on the 23rd, and if they can do the 30th.
Let's come back to that.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, not hearing anything else. Does anybody have any thoughts about the tools portion here? And about authorized use? Is this something? Anyways, any thoughts? Start with that.
I'm just reading it.
Yeah. Let me try to frame the issue, I guess, that I'm thinking of, or that may be coming up for other members of this ad hoc. So at the moment, the deployment authorization, we have authorized use and a deployment authorization, which is required. These authorized uses are listed out in section 3A, and then the deployment authorization is required in section 3 here. The question becomes, if the department wants to use one of these various tools that are detachable or on these robots, Should that be a separate authorization and a list of requirements? Or should it be the same as what was listed above in 3A2? That's probably the best way to think about it at the moment.
I think that there should be, I mean, especially since we have specific concerns around things that can be defined as weapons, that there should be a separate authorization. Unless, I mean, I guess DQ, is it sort of these sort of detachable tools is the use of a detachable tool sort of part and parcel of use of the robot, and it just sort of depends on which tool you're using, or
Yeah, it really takes, you kind of have to set it up depending what you want to use. So if it's something that I want to use a window punch, or if I want to use the small little blade to demobilize the vehicle tire, I kind of have to bring back the robot, set it up, and then drive it out there and do it. If it's something that I want to use for the OC cancer, believe it or not, we've used it in training before, so it does take time to set up, but we've never used it live. And then if we want to use the pan disruptor, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to set up.
a question specifically about the pan disruptor. So aren't there specific provisions within both the local ordinance and AB 481 around breaching equipment? And this is specifically a breaching tool, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like there should be a sort of cross, there definitely needs to be sort of a cross-referencing between two pieces of policy around breaching equipment as well as this particular item. But yeah, it feels like, yes, there should be specific authorizations for especially the ones that can be perceived as or are actually weapons, like the OC canister. I understand that the breaching thing is not specifically meant to be used as a weapon against an individual, but
And then to that specific concern, are the considerations that you would want to think about in going through each one of these contained in what we have, or is there something, or if not, what is that additional consideration?
Say that one more time, Jess.
Sure, but can you scroll up one page?
Yeah.
So this is the list of situations where robots and pole cameras can be used. And really, we're talking about robots here.
Right.
Does this, each one of these is a situation that has to be present before someone can authorize the use of a robot?
Correct.
And so my question is, if we want additional requirements or authorizations, or not, maybe not additional, but we agree that there should be requirements or specific situations for the use of the separate attachments, especially those that may involve breaching or uses of force. Are those scenarios covered in what we have here, listed here in A2? And if not, what additional thing is required?
No, I think that's an excellent question, Jesse. And then I see what you're saying, David, earlier. No, I think they are covered here, because if you were to look at, you can consider a person who's in the vehicle. The only time we probably bring out a robot is if they're considered barricaded or armed and they're in the vehicle and they're not waking up. So that'd be something you're bringing out the robot for in the vehicle, either to either demobilize the vehicle as far as puncturing the tire, or also window punch to open up the window so we don't have to use a bean bag, or even using an arm to open the door. So that'd be one instance. The other incidents would be the pan disruptor would be, it could be anything from a hostage situation or a barricaded suspect, where we need to bypass a lock and it's just safer to have a robot go up to it to breach the lock. That officers aren't having to walk up to the lock to try to demobilize the lock and then putting themselves in harm's way. So I think it's covered here. I guess to the response of, do we have another deployment authorization? I don't want to go too in depth and say example 1, 2, and 3, and have an end all be all, because I don't think there is an end all be all, because I think it could be covered in general by barricaded hostage. But you can also say, hey, it was a rescue operation. I could not breach the lock. I used a robot to breach, the bypass the lock for me so we can get in and render aid to a person. I don't see us using it for missing or lost persons, right?
Sounds like Commissioner Jordan has something.
Can you scroll back down to the detachable tools? Because maybe what we need is language there in the paragraph here under, where we're seeing under 4A, several ground robots have tools and so forth. Maybe that's that we need to be more specific around the when these are authorized to be used and under what circumstances. Maybe it's here that we need the language that specifies like these tools are only to be used under in a fashion that is sort of fits within their designed usage and sort of training and user training around these things. Even that feels a little bit vague and weak to me as I'm saying it out loud.
I get it.
But I guess I just want two things. I want to ensure that there is in fact no inadvertent misuse of any of these detachable tools. And I also want to make this relatively bulletproof policy-wise, so that we're not getting folks saying, well, you're just giving the department carte blanche to use a 12 gauge breaching weapon in whatever way they see fit, which is not our intention here. And I don't think it's your intention either.
No, I agree with you though. I see what you're saying. I like the idea of putting it here as opposed to somewhere else though. I like that. I think yeah, I'll look. I see what you're saying. The as far as the robotic claw with telescoping arm, that's basically just opening doors and everything, and I can even add for here for that, or delivering packages. But I see when we talk about the canister and everything else, how we should be a little bit more specific on the usages and when these tools should be attached and when they shouldn't be.
So if I can make a suggestion, what I would probably have you, what I think makes sense, I'll suggest it.
Mhm.
I think the detachable tool section should probably I think you need to duplicate some of the things that are here and put them into the component section that you have in section 2, description of technology.
Okay.
And then in your authorized use section, you lay out as you lay out the scenarios in which you can use the detachable tools. That makes sense. So you don't need to, so you can describe it in more detail a little bit higher, but then, down here, using for tools, it should be used in this way and in these circumstances.
Okay.
That makes sense.
No, I agree. Yeah, like I said, I don't see us using it for certain things, but there are some things where I see us using it. So yeah, I agree.
And then you should cross-reference training bulletin V-FO2 for the OC canister.
Is that the one we talked about?
Yeah, it's chemical.
Yeah, right. I think I actually took a photo of that when Turner was talking about it.
So,
Actually, we should probably cross-reference that. Is that the duty aerosol?
right.
Yeah.
TBV as in Victor -F-O2.
Yeah. I took a photo of it. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
She looking at it right now?
Yeah. And then you should, and then I imagine that 3 is a use of force that needs to be covered by K3 and K4.
Saying the glass or
Cross reference.
texture if it causes injury.
No, I think that if you use, I mean, let's say you want to get access to someone who's inside a vehicle. And so one of the methods that you might use is breaking the window to get a hold of them. That's a use of force, isn't it?
No, I don't see how that'd be a use of force because if I went up and use my baton it'd be more property damage. Unless Jeff, you can correct me here, maybe I'm completely wrong. I would say more it's property damage.
Yeah. it's
Like if
not
I'm
used
using
for-
if I'm using a bean bag or something to get through, bypass the window. But my intention is to bypass the window and I only bypass the window totally fine. Now, if I strike the person inadvertently, then absolutely I have to justify saying it's probably a level 2 use of force. So I think I'm totally fine with that. I think what I'll do here is if understanding that if I do cause injury, then I have to have it as a reportable use of force. Now, I don't think we've ever had it, and it'd probably be something considerable to maybe a level 2 or level 3, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do that. That's a good idea though. So I'll do that. If contact is made, maybe. I'll word it somehow though. Understanding that if I inadvertently still that we're not using it, but if I do use it, then it's understanding that it could be a use of force.
Sounds like to me a use of force, but I do see where you're coming from. But just when it comes to breaching or even like bringing attention, a lot of times that it does seem like you're forcing your way into, or you're forcing your presence in, so yeah.
No,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but for our policy, it's pretty specific. It has to be on a person. It's not on like a door or building or object.
Okay. Well, I think that is a good amount on robots. DQ, will you be there at the commission meeting on Friday?
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your help on this, though. I think that actually makes it a little bit more clear.
Yeah. I'm sure you're going to hear about robots and people's feelings about them. I think it'll be important to hear
Absolutely.
and why we need why, to Commissioner Jordan's point, it's important to delineate these exact uses so that people can be ensured that robots are not breaking down their doors and monitoring them for absolutely no reason.
Oh, I agree. I think we did that. I think for the drones for 3 years. So I think it is important.
Should we take up the impact report?
Yeah. Let's see. Oops. Okay. I really love opening my my email. Is it sharing or no?
No.
Here we go. All right, so I was able to identify these are all the robots we have. So I identified the all the robots we have, the cameras. I can change this up a little bit, but we only have one of each. I think we actually have 2 avatars. I saw how Joe Turner changed his up. I think we can change that with the drones a little bit just to make it clearer for the unit cost and what the total cost is. But this one is, we have one of everything except for the avatar, which we have 2. So the only difference would be that you'd see of $80,000 approximately, as opposed to 40,000, because we have 2 of these.
That makes sense.
Estimate or anticipated cost for each proposed use. Obviously, it's the same thing. What we normally have is the majority of time we have, or actually, let me just go back. It used to be that we only used robots for tactical team operations. And then when I took over the intelligence unit back in October of 2018, I kind of changed that. I wanted to make this accessible to patrol officers in general when there was a barricaded suspect, or if there was an unknown area. Why set an officer down in a crawl space when I can send a robot down underneath the house? And a lot of the watch commanders, everyone everyone appreciated it. So now I have 14 officers on my team, and usually someone's always on duty and everyone's kind of coming out. So I don't have, again, an actual list of what the overtime expenditures are. Usually someone's on duty when they're doing this, but again, this is something we can do through an I-code of if someone were to get called out, which we are keeping track of. We weren't told to keep track of robots, but I started doing it last year. Then I started doing it for the drones, so I started doing it for the robots. So I keep track of all the robots and drone operations and deployments. But what I don't keep track of is if someone's on duty or off duty. So I know Jennifer had asked about that, but I don't think, unfortunately, I just don't see how to keep track of that. Scrolling down, the ongoing costs. We have maintenance and upgrade costs. So I did not include anything on here. I don't know if that's something, just I can give you an example. We repaired the broken arm. I think it cost about $3,000 or about $2,000. I can't remember. We do have our own little filing system for it. So we are keeping track of when we send it in for repairs. But it also can be that we're just missing a screw and we buy our screw ourselves. That costs about 50 cents. Or it can cost something where we need to buy a new battery that costs $300. So it's anything from a couple dollars, or it could cost maybe $2,000. And then our training costs is we do train twice a month now, because I want to make sure that everyone gets enough flying time for our FAA 107. So I've incorporated kind of the ESU training with the robots. It's the same operators. So you have to go through, you have to be an ESU member to do both. You just don't randomly get to train or utilize one of these robots. They're too expensive. And obviously you have to understand how to utilize all the equipment.
Erickson?
When it comes to the cost, are you also including like the operators and folks that besides just the equipment, like I know overtime, is that a possibility when it comes to the pole cameras? Given that you could have it set up for a long period of time, right?
So no, that's an excellent question, E. So yeah, we haven't been keeping track of, like I said, the overtime expenditures. There are 14 guys, 1 gal on the team. And I've tried to spread them out to where everybody's kind of covering 24/7, but it's still kind of hard. I'm going to open it up to more officers so I can get more full coverage around the clock so we can limit our overtime expenditures. Because just for a quick example, every time you take out, anytime someone is asking for a drone, I'm always telling them, take out a robot, a pole cam, and a drone, because you don't know, there's no purpose for me to take out a robot, I'm sorry, a drone, and then I'm at the scene and I realize now I need a robot. Now you got to drive back to the police station, grab the robot, take the robot out. So I try to get everybody to take everything out. And I can give an example of this year alone, I think we're at about 75 deployments of robots and drones. Doesn't mean that I've deployed the robot 75 times, but I have deployed the drone 75 times. There are times where they're just asking for a robot as opposed to a drone, so I don't have the actual expenditure codes. It could be that somebody's out there for 3 hours. It could be that we're out there for 5. So I'm kind of, again, I guess the lack of my time too, trying to figure out how to keep track of this. Unfortunately, like I always give the example of the Alameda County Sheriff's Department has 1 full-time lieutenant, 1 full-time sergeant, 1 full-time officer, and they have 2 technicians for their drone program / robot program. I'm doing this as my secondary kind of job. So they have 5 people dedicated to this. And it's unfortunately just myself with a couple other team members that are trying to keep track of all this. So hard.
Thank you.
So in terms of maintenance and upgrade costs, I know that there are, it's hard to list everything, every small piece, etc. But is there like you've been tracking it for about a year. Perhaps you could give just the cost of all maintenance that has occurred in the last year. And then perhaps what some of the bigger expenditures have been. Like that $3,000 for a claw, that seems pretty significant.
Yeah.
Maybe not, I don't know, but like to me that seems significant.
No, it is.
It doesn't need to be every single thing, but maybe like the bigger ticket items.
Okay. Like we have our large Andros that we have, the $250,000 robot. We go to training once a year through San Francisco Police Department. It's free training where a person from the company comes out, helps us take apart the entire drone, entire robot for free, and put it back together. I don't know if that's in the warranty or not, but yeah, what I'll do is I'll break it down with a couple significant little items and then also the kind of bigger one.
Great.
Impacts. I kind of left it the same, but I also put the impact of unintended persons. So kind of going back to this portion right here, kind of going back to understanding that if we're utilizing the pan disruptor and utilizing everything else, that we have to be careful and understand that it can cause minor to serious injury. But I think that's where we have the training, we have the understanding now. So if we incorporate that, obviously in the authorized use, kind of how David explained, and you, Jesse, I think that'd be beneficial to us. And to go on to training, one of the things we never used to do was, I don't have an actual training manual yet for robots, but we did our own in-house training for drones. So we created our own, the first thing we did was an 80-hour course for the first OPD officers for drones, so that everybody can understand what we need to do in-house to deploy. So what we did was when we brought on the new people who are flying drones, we have a 40-hour course in-house for them to go through. And the other thing we did was create a 40-hour in-house course for drones, for robots, because what we used to do was go through an application process, an interview process. You get brought onto the team and you get one monthly training, one training a month. So imagine you going one training a month for the next 5 months. So what I did was I uploaded it or front loaded it. So that I can have continuous 40-hour training real quick for everybody. So it brought everybody up to speed for 40 hours. So that was something we did. The only thing I don't think we've done is actually create an actual pamphlet for it. So that's something I want to do. So that's kind of what we've done to kind of safeguard this. And I didn't incorporate this also, but when you're brand new and you're deploying, you don't get to kind of deploy by yourself. You have to go with a senior officer for the first couple times until that senior officer sees that you're proficient with the tool. Then that senior officer will kind of talk to me and let everybody know, you know what, Mark or Adam, whoever, he's good to go by himself now. He's with somebody, so everybody understands that. So that's something else I can kind of incorporate in here if we feel the need. But I think that kind of explains it with how we do training.
So this part is about impacts, though, and what you mentioned sounds a lot like mitigations of those impacts.
Okay.
Right. And so I think you have sort of taken care of it. Or let me be more directed. The first 4 lines should stay.
Okay.
The second 2 sentences, or those 2 sentences that I've highlighted sound like mitigations.
Okay.
Because those are things that training is what prevents these impacts or reduces the impact, right?
Okay.
I do think that there should be discussion about injury, specifically with the OC canister.
Okay.
And property damage, since some of these are talking about breaching or puncturing tires. And that is, even though it is deliberate, is an impact on the population and their property.
Okay.
Is the title impact of unintended persons, is that unintended uses?
I guess it'd be unintended. Yeah, you know what? You're right. It'd be because we're not doing an unintended person. So it'd be impact of unintended. So I'm utilizing it by I unintentionally used it against a person as opposed to utilizing it against the property.
So I would put down impact of intended and unintended, or impact on persons.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Unintended impact on persons?
Well, some of them might be intended. I mean, if you're using an OC canister on somebody,
Yeah.
right? That's why I thought about unintended. But I will also want to capture, like, part of these impact reports, I think, is capturing what happens to people, even in the proper use.
Mhm.
Which is why I didn't say unintended.
Okay, that makes sense.
And also on the fourth line and on the exits should be exists, I think.
Oh yeah, thank you.
On the subject of impacts or mitigations from this impact report, any?
Today I flipped 4 rocks. Here's what I found.
Any thoughts, suggestions, or comments?
There's a comment in the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Well, I can answer that question. That would be pretty much a use of force. So we would have to obviously take a use of force report and provide that person with the necessary care, medical attention before booking that person. So that person would obviously know who we are.
They would know that it's the police. Would they know the ESU operator? I think that's what the question is getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the person wanted the name of the officer, absolutely. So anytime anybody asks for a name of an officer, we're always gonna provide the name of the officer if the subject or the suspect or another person wanted the name of the person who used force on someone. Yeah, there wouldn't be a reason why we wouldn't provide that name of the person. The only time we wouldn't provide it is if there is circumstantial evidence that it would bring danger upon that officer, but that's more for like a level 1 use of force officer involved shooting, where sometimes they hold the name and they hold the information for a certain time frame if there's threats against that officer. But for an OC canister, I don't see how that wouldn't be given. I'll leave it at that.
Any other thoughts on mitigations or impacts for this particular impact report? I wanted to highlight the technical safeguard section just briefly.
Okay.
I see that you've put down here the speeds, that they're tracked, that they're not like sort of autonomous, and they have lights and cameras. This section is, of course, the mitigation sections. I think it's worth a sentence saying why you put these things in here, to explain why or how these things make this device safer or more useful or whatever it is that you're trying to convey here. Because I think I understand. You're saying like, well, these robots are not gonna run into things or damage things because they move really slowly. And they're all under control. There's not going to be accidental collisions because of pre-designated or map routes. And they have lights and cameras so people can see it coming and it won't get run over or something like that. That's what I think you're trying to say. But
yeah, I was pretty much trying to explain that they're not gonna run over your foot and or cause damage to a person. They're going 2 miles an hour, 3.5 miles an hour. They're not going at 20 miles an hour where we're gonna have a major collision or something. So I can kind of add a little bit to it.
Yeah, that's all just because otherwise I look at it and I'm like, why did you put this here?
I don't know if this is also somewhere where you want to add additional information considering the fact that we have the detachable stuff and precautions we take when we add.
I think those are the procedural safeguards.
Okay.
Unless there's some technical thing that ensures like they don't go off accidentally.
Okay.
Or they don't go off. Is there something? Or
yeah, there are. So you have to have
okay, then
have safeguards. It's just kind of like just the same thing you would have with the pistol. It's the safety and everything. So I can put safety precautions.
yes, that would be great. That would go really well in this section. Okay. Can you take us through alternatives? It's running a little short on time.
Yeah. I think this is one of the things that I kind of discussed about the de-escalation alternative strategies of how we have utilized the robots, the pole cams, to into our de-escalation strategy for in general for OPD, where we're able to utilize them. It's mitigated use of force incidents. It's brought critical incidents to a safe resolution. So I was kind of trying to highlight that in this area.
I appreciate that. I think that this section really gets to what you have down on the last paragraph, which is considering different, maybe not every single model, but alternatives to actually using this particular technology. And I think you do a good job of saying that by saying, you know, UAVs can't open doors, UAVs may not fit in attic or basement ways. And also it is the alternative to a robot is an actual police officer opening doors or like puncturing tires.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that's useful to say because unless you can think of some other alternatives, it's probably better to have a robot puncture a tire than to shoot it. That's for sure.
Just the location, obviously, where we store it. That's not much different. And then the track record here. Basically just putting us at a position advantage. Again, I referenced Santa Rosa, that they have the same avatar robots. I know they've only deployed it 10 times. I wasn't getting into the times we've deployed them. And San Francisco has robots, but they don't have any type of unmanned aerial vehicles. And I think that's about it.
It strikes me that since you've been using, or that these robots have been used for a while, that you might have anecdotal information of their track record. I think you do. Like you describe it every time we come through these meetings. Do you think that might be like, you don't have to put down every single one, but maybe exemplary situations where robots have been useful? I think that would be helpful in the track record section. Especially because the department has been using them for a while. So, and that especially will give more information to the public as they're reading these impact reports of situations that the department uses the robots, contrasting that with situations they aren't.
That's a good idea.
Okay. I said I would get back to scheduling about the demonstrations, and we have about 2 minutes left. So why don't we try to talk about that? Are you saying like won't be able to do LRAD or just the whole slate that you wanted to on the 23rd?
Let me see. I got told, I'm texting them. He says, I think they're out on training. And they're saying, is the 30th okay?
Okay.
So the 30th works actually a little bit better for me personally, but so I'm open.
Me too. I'm totally free on the 30th.
Erickson?
Around what time?
Probably morning would be better, but I'm as of right now, sure come that week I'll have more things happening, but as of right now, I'm pretty open.
Commissioner Jackson Castaigne?
I'm open. right now too.
Okay. Maybe we said DQ, in the interest of time, give us maybe a morning, an afternoon, or give us 3 times on the 30th. It sounds like it works.
He said
Okay.
9 a.m., but I think he's pretty flexible. I'll make him flexible. Don't worry.
Okay.
We'll make it work for everybody. Trust me. And if
Yeah.
we'll make it work for everybody.
Just email us maybe three possibilities, and we figure out which works best.
Okay.
Go from there
Sounds perfect.
on the 30th. Okay. Thank you. Much appreciated. We didn't quite get to UAS, but we may have another chance coming up. I'm gonna take a look at the schedule and figure it out. I haven't had a chance to for tonight, but thank you so much. We'll see everyone on Friday for the commission meeting, and then Monday for the next installment of this ad hoc.
Cool.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, thanks.